Bonjour, we meet again.
Bonjour to you.
Bonjour.
Thank you for your cultural sensitivity right off the bat.
Yes, that's what I do best. I know a few words in French, and that's one of them. So thank you for not cussing me out as a Frenchman. So it's awesome.
Well, that's because I spent enough of my life in the US at this stage. So otherwise, my default reaction would have indeed been to cuss you out.
Yeah, this idiot. That's awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for hopping on. You just published the latest Mad landscape the other day, and so excited to talk
Yes,
about that.
2025, just in time for 2026 to start.
Yeah, your cadence is a bit different. I believe you used to publish them at the beginning of the year that started, and now it's
Yeah.
towards the end. So,
Yes, it's a detail that was not lost on me either. Turns out that the production of content, when you're a VC and when the day job is to invest in companies and sit on boards, the night job and the weekend job, which is creating mad landscapes, mad podcasts, and all sorts of other content things, I do tend to take a back seat. So
yeah,
the original publication date was probably something like February or March, and here we are in end of October, beginning of November.
yeah. Well, better late than never. So it was a. I always like reading the Mad Landscapes, as I'm proud of telling you. I think I've read them since 2012. I believe that's when you first
Yeah,
started publishing them.
thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, thank you. I should be thanking you for that. What are some of the highlight reels from the 2025 Mad?
Yeah, so I think the key thing, which has already been commented on quite a bit, both publicly and very much privately, is the fact that this is our biggest sort of rejigger of the landscape. And in particular, the one key thing we did was to cut the number of logos very significantly. So last year, I think we were trying to be cute. Last year was 2024. I think we ended up around 2024 logos. And this year we effectively declared bankruptcy a little bit on trying to fit everybody in because, as we know, it's we're in the middle of a Cambrian explosion of companies, yet another one. So there was the Cambrian explosion of companies around the modern data stack and data warehouses, not that long ago. Not that many companies disappeared between 2021 and 2023, 24, when things started picking up again. And now we have like another major wave, probably bigger wave of companies in AI. So there's just no way we can fit everything on one infographic. And, it was kind of cute for like a year or two that people were saying, well, this thing is unusable because there are so many companies. But ultimately, we're trying to make this usable. So we got a bunch of logos, and not everybody's super happy about it. Like we were trying to manage that, but effectively, marketing will lead to inclusion. Editorial stance and analysis will lead to exclusion. So we are
Hmm,
in the latter scenario.
interesting. Do you have a sense of the total number of companies in the universe that you survey right now versus the ones that made it to the landscape?
Uh, we had about 1,200 companies on the landscape, give or take, and I would probably say there's probably 3-4x that number at this stage,
Okay.
because even last year when we were at 2024 logos or whatever, we were probably at half of the companies we
Yeah.
looked at, and at some point we had a spreadsheet to catch everyone, but just even that is just impossible. So that's one key thing. So we cut a bunch of logos. The other key thing we did, which same thing as been discussed already, both publicly and also privately in terms of inbound, we added a lot of products from the larger companies, hyperscalers, and the large pure plays, whether that's OpenAI, Anthropic, or Databricks and Snowflake. We added, we used to have like a handful of logos, and now we've added multiple products
Hmm.
to various categories to effectively reflect the reality of the market. So we're trying, this is a cartography exercise. We're trying to reflect reality as it is versus reality that maybe we as VCs or some early stage founders would like it to be. The
Hmm.
reality is that if there is one key characteristic of this big AI wave, it's the struggle and tension between the very large companies and the startups. So, as been discussed in many different places, it used to be that you had the lazy incumbents and the young startups. And what's very different here is that the incumbents, particularly the technology companies, are absolutely not lazy. And in fact, they have some of the best researchers and they have the best distribution. And the question has more become how, as startups, you get to success. So, it'd be tempting to just have a little bit of like an insider VC kind of map, which arguably is sort of what the landscape used to be. But at this stage, because that landscape has made the rounds over the years and is now in many different rooms and used at conferences and used by analysts and most importantly used by buyers of technology, we want the map to reflect the landscape. And the reality of the landscape is that, like it or not, Databricks has a lot of products in a lot of categories. So we try to find the right balance, but we wanted to reflect that. So that's another key characteristic of the work we've done this year.
You mentioned something that's really interesting, which is the usage by various, and users, I guess, or consumers of the report. How has that changed maybe since the modern data stack era?
I think it's less related to the modern data stack or AI. I think it's just related to the fact that this document of this effort, because it's been annual and going on for a little while, as largely become larger than its original audience.
Hmm.
So it used to be, when we started the thing back in 2012. So like the origin story of this is my colleague Sivan Zilis,
Oh, yes.
who was at Bloomberg with me, the predecessor to Bloomberg Beta, and then went on to be on the board of OpenAI, and then has had our own personal journey. Really, the idea of doing this was to help us do the work, and as we're looking to invest and make sense of the big data ecosystem at the time, we wanted to basically do a list of cool companies to look at, right? And that was more of a kind of a guide for investors and very early stage kind of companies. And bit by bit, this become more of a thing. So now, as I mentioned a minute ago, like a bunch of people are looking at this. So the audience is considerably expanded. So we're trying to do something that's less, what the insiders already know, and we're
Mm.
telling the rest of the world. And we're trying to do something that's a lot more, well, if you're interested in the data, infra, machine learning, and AI space, those are some of the companies that you need to know. And by the way, we don't claim to be completely exhaustive. Like, we're not Gartner for sure. So this is still somewhat opinionated. By the way, we may, in the next sort of like 1.1 or 1.2 version of this, we may add a few more companies back.
Yeah, I was gonna say you do have the data for it, so you could I guess the spreadsheet or whatever you have now, but
Yep.
you can't fit them all in the icons, though. I totally get it. It's. I mean, I joked even with last year's. I think you had like 2,000 something companies on there, and that was half, and that you needed the James Webb Telescope to see any of the icons on there because it was just
Yes.
ridiculous. So
Yes. The Mad Landscape brought to you by Warby Parker.
yes, yeah. Well,
And as you know, we also have a interactive version of this at
mhm.
mad.firstmark.com, which is fully digital, fully searchable. When you click on the logos, you have a little card that pops up that's provided by CB Insights. So we've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years, very much thanks to the partnership and generosity of a company called Go Fractional here in New York that's basically doing things pro bono, just like to
That's
help
cool.
and to be part of the ecosystem. So that is an important part of the overall resource, right? That's the PDF, there's the searchable version, the digital version, which is searchable, and then there's the blog post.
So when your report came out, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember which. I was in Finland at the time. Um, I think immediately people were either excited they were on the list or people were very upset they weren't on the list, and they felt like you're potentially becoming kingmaker, so to speak. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's not the objective here.
Yeah,
I do understand the sentiment. I do
yeah,
understand the importance of a public list, and I'm very sensitive to all of this. But we're not trying to be anything that we're not. We're not,
yeah,
an analyst firm. We haven't done, hundreds of thousands of hours of briefing with various companies, so we're doing effectively the best we can. We do have, however, an informed point of view by virtue of being in the market every day, mostly from an early stage venture angle. But we do talk to tons of buyers, tons of other VCs, tons of founders, and then we do a tremendous amount of research. So what we're trying to do here is to strike the right balance between market visibility, which is why we have some hyperscalers and large pure play products, as well as the large obvious startups. So that's the visibility part, but like we try to have some rows where we include some of the emerging players,
yeah.
and for that it's a very imperfect heuristic where we look at any sign of traction that we can find. So if anything is reported in the press, we'll use that. If for what it's worth, a startup has raised at a rapid pace from great investors, that's another sign. If they have great open source traction, that's another sign. So we spend a lot of time trying to do the best job we can to assess traction, especially for the emerging
Got
players.
it. I guess as a candidate side, what would guarantee that you don't get on the list?
Well, we've had some inbound over the last few days of companies that have largely stopped doing any kind of marketing, that were unhappy that they were no longer on the list. And I explained, like, we actually went on your website, at a minimum, like, looked at the your blog post, like there was anything in the last year you haven't
Mm,
raised money, or this, we check out as well the a lot of those sort of like secondary call expert networks databases that we have access to, like Tigers and that kind of stuff, and like there was nothing there. So basically, if you're
yeah,
come across as a zombie, don't be entirely surprised that people like us will not include you
sure.
in the context where the real estate has become very very expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the audience, I was on the list, I think 1 or 2 years, and my company's no longer on there, Ternary Data, because we don't exist anymore.
But that's
So,
exactly right. So
yeah,
very specifically, I went to Ternary Data and I went
yeah,
to your LinkedIn profile, and I
yeah,
saw that Ternary Data was no longer there, and that
yeah.
you had a 2025 at the upper limit of your time at Ternary. So like
Yeah.
that's a perfect example, because like we do make those efforts. We do research this pretty heavily.
Yeah. What surprised you most about putting together this year's report, and I guess and the things that have changed from last year to this year?
So as the landscape is an editorial effort, there's what you add and what you delete, and both say a lot, I think, about what's going on in the market. In terms of deleting categories, one topic that I almost included in the 25 idea list that's in the blog post is the great disappearance of the customer data platform,
Oh, interesting.
which was a very vibrant category. And if you look around in the last 18 months, that category has largely just gone away. So M Particle was acquired, Action IQ, in which I was an investor, was acquired. I believe Lytics was acquired. And as a result, there's effectively no more pure play. I think there might be Simon Data, but I think they more or less pivoted or expanded in a different direction. And some of the reverse ETL companies. If you
Yeah.
remember, that was a whole thing, right? Like you had ETL and you had like reverse ETL. We deleted reverse ETL as a category as well, in part because reverse ETL and ETL merged, into Fivetran, but also because some of the reverse ETL companies expanded, right? So
Mhm.
first they ate the customer data platform, segment, and then they expanded into different things. So those were like some of the hottest categories of 2021, right? Like reverse ETL was going to be a big thing. Customer data platforms were going to be a big thing. So those are gone. If you look at the middle of the landscape, there is that analytics category in which we had included customer data platforms. That used to be much wider than it is, and has got thinned out quite a bit. In part because there are entire questions around BI. BI was always the last mile in the modern data stack. And it's unclear what's happening to that category altogether in a world where
Feel free to
and
share it here. So the analytics piece here. Let me zoom in for the audience.
yes. So it's still smack in the middle, but
Jesus.
it's gone pretty skinny. It's
Let's
gone pretty
see.
skinny.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah. So there's the question of like what's there was saying what's happening to BI in general. So there are companies like Sigma, or I believe ThoughtSpot, but in particular Sigma are doing well. Uh, but everybody else, it's sort of unclear. In a world where you want to chat GPT your way into
Mm.
your analytical stacks, do you still need dashboards? So of course, like every vendor is trying to provide a way to query data using natural language interfaces. But
Mm.
is there room for BI as we know it in the future, or is that something that's going to go away?
Interesting. And how are those questions impacting, I guess, your personal investment thesis?
So the second part of the answer to your question actually goes exactly to this, which is what categories did we add? And to my investment thesis, as an early stage investor, I very much want to be an investor in the categories that we're adding, um, because I want to catch the early parts of the wave. And a lot of what we added goes, not surprisingly, into the AI box, which is more on the right side of the
Let's see here.
landscape. And we added a bunch of things, including stuff around agents. So we have an
Let me present that again, actually. Sorry. Computer's lagging a second. Okay, back to AI. Okay. You can see that.
yes.
Okay.
So we added an agent platform category, and we added an agent infra and tooling category.
Platform. Okay, there we go.
And those are fascinating, right? Because like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, nobody really talked about agents. Last year, everybody talked about agents, but they did not exist. And for for the most part, and this year is the year where agents have become a much more serious thing, and categories to support them, make them possible, emerge seemingly out of nowhere. Sometimes with brand new startups that were purpose built for it, sometimes from larger company that sort of repurposed a part of their infrastructure to for that purpose. There is another category around routing, prompt management, and experimentation. That's right below those agent categories. Something that we added. Yep,
This
you're
one.
right.
Okay. Yep.
Yep, you're right here. That we added again. Like most of those companies did not exist a couple of years ago, but now that's become the new data infrastructure, if you will, or the new MLOps, or the new that's part of the new data stack, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, just to extrapolate a little bit, the merge between data infrastructure and AI infrastructure is also one of the fascinating themes of this year. And you know, who ends up winning the battle for the infra layer is a great question. Is that
Mm-hmm.
the traditional quote unquote players like Snowflake or Databricks that started from the data warehouse, data lakehouse kind of world, although that's not entirely technically true for Databricks because they actually originally came from the machine learning world,
Yeah.
in the early days. But for the most part, they've been sort of traditional quote unquote data infrastructure players, and now there's a whole new category of like layers around agent infra, agent memory, agent toolbox, agent sandboxes, and that's becoming a new layer. So who does what? How do they stack on top of each other?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and can you win larger data infra battles if you start from the AI specialist, AI native kind of starting point, or do you win if you're Databricks and you have like so much market gravity and you coming from precisely data gravity and like adding layers on top?
Sure. And I do have some questions too. If you kind of get down to, I would say these specialized companies. So maybe this is more of a general question on where you think SaaS is going. I've heard, I'm pretty sure you've heard too, speculation that a lot of the agents, especially as they get better, will eat away at SaaS tools and maybe specific verticals and so forth. Do you have any thesis around that speculation?
Yeah, there's two layers to this. There's SaaS versus AI native, and then there's agents versus foundation models. So to answer your question, which I think is the first one, I think it's super hard for most SaaS companies. I think like everybody has been rushing to try and embrace AI, but it's kind of
Hmm.
hard if you're not AI native and you waited a tad bit too long. You
Mm,
basically have to rebuild a lot of your DNA, and if you come from a database centric kind of world, reimagining yourself as a model centric
yeah.
provider it's just very hard. It's just a very different way to operate. So I think there's a lot of vertical SaaS companies that are struggling, and this is compounded by some of the 2020 and 2021 excesses,
Mm,
where a lot of those companies raised a lot of money at very high valuations a few years ago and are still growing their way into it. So had to cut very severely in 2022 to extend runway. And now fast forward to 2025, a good number of those companies made it through, but find themselves now confronted with that second
yeah.
wave. So it's super hard. It's been
Yeah, you
super
can't
hard.
catch a break. Yeah.
Yes,
It's like,
yeah, exactly. But equally within the SaaS world, I think there's a number of companies that are effectively systems of record, and that to me feels like a more defensible
hmm.
kind of way. So effectively, if you work day, I think you're reasonably safe. Famous last words, but I think you're reasonably safe because a lot of data gravity is sort of embedded into your system, and that's really important mission critical data. And then I would add that if you work day and if you're doing one of those things that a lot of people consider to be a little drier, not to say boring. I don't think that you're gonna have all the OpenAI kids and the YC kids jump
Right.
to just reinvent the exact thing that Workday does. So I think you're reasonably safe. But those would be the exception within the broader SaaS world. So that's one part of the discussion. Second part of the discussion, I think, which is something that we think about and is discussed or not discussed, depending on the moment, is the opportunity to build long-term, sort of long-standing, successful companies as vertical agents in
Mm,
a context where models seem to be creeping up all the time. And I guess it's a
hmm.
variation of the thin wrapper versus thick wrapper kind of discussion. So, 2 years ago, everybody said, well, you can build a company on top of a model because you just like a thin layer and there's no value. And then fast forward to last year, everybody was saying, well, look, the thin wrappers have become thick wrappers. Because as it turns out, you have a lot of things that you need to build that are going to be vertical specific and problem specific that the foundation models are not going to address. But it feels like that's the third inning of that battle, which is
Mm.
that now instead of talking about wrapper applications, we're talking about agents, which may be partly semantic, partly a real difference. But it seems that the level of ambition of the foundation model companies just keeps expanding, and
Yeah.
perhaps that's a reflection of the fact that like nobody has been able to achieve a completely durable and defensible advantage in the underlying model race. But if you look at what OpenAI does, certainly they're going full hog after the consumer opportunity, but even in the enterprise opportunity, which a lot of people said that they wouldn't do, they seem doing tons, right, from data analytics to vertical stuff. So they have a lot of stuff in healthcare. They just announced the other day that they're hiring a bunch of bankers to build some of the banker type workflows natively into the models, which you could argue is either good news or bad news for the
Hmm.
agent companies. So I've heard and seen sort of banking focused AI agent companies say, well, that's the best news ever because the underlying model capabilities keep making our products better, which is sort of like the thing that you're supposed to say. But I think in reality, that's there's a real challenge there, which I'm trying to wrap my mind around as an investor. If the underlying model basically does the grunt work of like a bunch of junior bankers, like what is it that
Hmm.
you actually provide on top? You may
Hmm.
offer some level of company specific data, but at this stage, a lot of customers feel comfortable sending their data to OpenAI, especially air gapped OpenAI. So presumably you'll be able to do that natively in OpenAI. Do you add a layer of collaboration, deeper integration? But all of this seems to be changing by the day, and it's very tricky for everyone involved.
Yeah, I can imagine. Sorry, I'm trying to stop sharing here, and my computer won't let me do that.
That's the thing.
Well,
Like we have a all powerful AI, but our computers don't let us do
I'm literally pressing
basic
every
stuff.
button
Yes.
right now, and it just says, "No, you can't. Sorry, just keep presenting the same thing."
Yes.
Maybe I'll just be able to click on this part then. Okay, there we go. I just changed it. That was weird. Um, no, that's really interesting. And I guess how are you as an investor? Is there anything in the back of your head where you're kind of like, do you feel certain about where things are going right now? I know a lot of VCs are very certain about everything. You seem to be more sane, so
That's our job.
just, I know where it's going. And
Definitely.
but like, how are you? What is your? How do you even view the world right now? Because it feels like things are changing on a very continual basis, very quickly.
Yeah, so as an investor, I try very hard to find little bits of blue ocean that don't feel in immediate collision courses or an immediate collision course with the foundation models in
Mm.
particular. If that's one thing that has surprised me again is just velocity of the foundation model companies. And as we know, not everybody made it. A bunch started and then went away. But if you look at OpenAI and Anthropic in particular, it's been remarkable. Just the level of ambition and execution and then success. And it makes everything else tricky from an investment perspective because they clearly ate the foundation model layer. There are chunks of the infra layer which they're more or less eating or at least abstracting away, and then always, as we just discussed, the entire application layer. You can argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but directionally it feels like they keep narrowing the opportunity set. So for me as an investor, I look for little bits of blue ocean. One area that I've been excited about for the last 12 months is local AI, which
Mm.
is a little bit of a counterintuitive one to some extent. But for in 2025, local AI went from a hobby to a deployment modality. It used to be that people like to try and deploy in a very haphazard way models to run on their laptops, and it was like for the most like privacy focused kind of people. But fast forward to today, it feels like deployment of AI at scale in the enterprise will be a continuum for me. It will go from public cloud type thing with like fully open, OpenAI, to VPC, to on-prem, to local, and depending on the workload, both in terms of like data sensitivity, but also how quick and crisp you want the AI's reaction to be, you will use local and edge as part of the overall stack. So I think that's an interesting area, which in some ways is still very much emerging, and as edge devices, in particular laptops, keep getting more powerful, I think there's going to be some interesting stuff happening there. I don't know if that's something that OpenAI is going to eat as well, but it feels like it's far enough from what they're focused on that there is an opportunity there. So that's one area I've liked. I think video and voice are to some extent underdeveloped modalities. So I've been looking into these areas and investing in those areas. Obviously, in 2025, there was an explosion of interesting stuff around video, from VO3 to Sora 2, to some of the stuff that Runway does. However, I think we sort of scratching the surface.
Yeah,
I'm a proud investor in Synthesia, which is
that's right.
one of those investments that I had the good fortune of making well ahead of the ChatGPT moment, which is a testament to how visionary the founders were.
Well, Adobe was interested in them too. So
yeah, so that's a whole separate discussion about like what those large incumbent companies do.
yeah.
But from the vantage point of being a board member at Synthesia, like I'm seeing just like the absolute gargantuan size of the video opportunity as AI truly gets past the uncanny valley for avatars, but like in general, like a creation of tools. Like it's hard to imagine that the way we create and consume content in the enterprise is going to be, PowerPoint centric and text centric for much longer. At a minimum, it'll be a mix of different modalities, but like video being as easy to create as a PowerPoint, I think it's just a major evolution. And then voice, I think voice is a very natural interface for AI. We've sort of known that from the Siri days and even before that, but I don't think that a chatbot kind of thing is the killer interface for AI going forward. It feels very Google-ish, sort of 20 years ago. I think voice is going to be one of the key modalities, and we're starting to see it everywhere, in healthcare, in financial services, and then in personal computing. So far, voice has been very expensive. If some companies have done incredibly well, like the 11 Labs of the world, but they're notoriously very expensive. Voice has been very expensive for OpenAI as well, which is why you don't have voice across all models for everyone. It's just too expensive. So we think there's an opportunity there. We just made an investment in the space, which is unannounced as of now, but we think that's very, very interesting and just starting.
Super cool. And you mentioned the back to the local AI thing too. Before we started, you mentioned that you have a significant chunk of your portfolio in non-US, i.e. Europe.
Yes.
And when I talk to data leaders there, for the American audience too, Europe just operates differently, just for every reason in the world. And there's a lot more conservative behavior, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing in a lot of cases. But the local AI is definitely something that is top of mind for chief data officers, CTOs, and so forth. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
an interesting play.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And to the Europe thing, like when you're an investor, you need to have an opinion on the world. And one of my opinions, and it's easier for me because it's my personal cultural background. I've been born and raised in France, although I spent most of my life in the US at this stage. I believe that Europe is very underestimated in terms of entrepreneurial quality, talent, and ambition. And I would argue that the fact that if you want to be an entrepreneur in Europe, you have to go through many more hoops than in the US is a wonderful filter. And just the act of starting a company and raising a little bit of money, like if you're able to do that, you've already demonstrated a level of ambition and grit that is above a lot of what you see in the US. And So I would not underestimate Europe. And Europe, when it comes to AI, there's a clear narrative violation against the idea that all AI worth talking about is made in San Francisco. We talked about Synthesia in the UK. We talked about 11 Labs. There's Lovable, and there's a bunch of like infra companies, N8N, and a lot more coming. Yes, less assets in VC terms, but some amazing entrepreneurs and amazing companies in the making.
yeah. Angel invested in Now, which is a
Great.
data-driven ID, and they're in Paris.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Great. No, that's and Paris, obviously near and close to my heart.
yeah,
Bunch of things happening. A long
oh yeah,
tradition around AI and machine learning. Obviously Yann LeCun being French, but it's no accident that Fair put their AI lab there like a few years ago. That basically helped lead to the creation of companies like Mistral and H, in which I'm an investor, as some like former DeepMind folks. The stealth company I was mentioning doing voice has also some like Fair and DeepMind talent. So this incredible world leading talent out of Europe. A lot of them have moved to the US and San Francisco, but a bunch are still in Europe. So again,
sure.
like I'm a fan, as you can tell.
Yeah, same. I think I spend
Is
more of
is
my time in Europe than here
Yeah,
actually. So
I mean
yeah.
it's harder, but that's sort of the point.
Hmm. Um, Looking to next year's landscape, assuming that you do one in December of 26.
No.
I'm just kidding. December 31st, 2026. So what do you is there anything in the back of your head where you're sort of wondering what could change this whole mad landscape from this year to next?
I think we're going to need to build it back up a little bit in terms of number of logos. I think we declare bankruptcy and we're going to rebuild from there to just include a few more. I think it's a futile exercise to just keep it at the number of logos that we have currently. So hopefully we're able to do that in a way that people find helpful. And for those that were not included in the current list or in the upcoming 1.1 release, hopefully they will be then. I think the top layer, which is application and agents, is going to just keep growing dramatically. Again, the version that we have here is highly editorialized, but a lot more companies could be into those boxes, and I think we're going to have a lot more. We this just tremendous energy of like tech problem X, add AI to it, see if it really makes a difference, and if so, build a company. Actually, in many cases, add AI, even if it doesn't make much of a difference, still create a company.
Right.
I think that's going to evolve. A big question to me, and maybe that's too cute from a landscape perspective, is that theme I was alluding to of the merge between data infrastructure and
Mm,
AI infrastructure. So should we have just one box there for like all forms of infrastructure, knowing that there are still like a bunch of things that that are very specific to data infrastructure that need to continue existing in the world. So that's one possibility, that we merge everything.
Interesting. Um, are there any new categories that you have your eye on that aren't yet in the landscape, but might be in the future?
It's a good question. We try to be sort of forward thinking in that. So local AI is one where we're like debating whether to put it or not, and we did. Um,
Yeah, humanoid data scientists. I don't know.
yeah, robotics is one where we had a hard time figuring out how to do it. So it's under industry on the top right corner, but it sort of feels like that could be a whole landscape in itself. So we paid
Yes.
homage to the category, but it's certainly not as expanded as we could. Life sciences is another one that is under represented in many ways, where we put some companies that we know and like and that are doing great work, but there could be a lot more. The theme of AI doing science and AI doing life science in particular seems to be one of the key emerging themes for 2026. There was the Yale and Google news from a couple of weeks ago, where AI was, discovering some cancer cure pathways, I believe, and that's something that the whole industry talks about. Sometimes in the context of Move 37,
Hmm.
the AlphaGo, move that nobody expected that the machine was able to do in a way that humans would not have been able to do. So there's like this whole theme of AI being able to come up with ways of discovering things that no humans would have thought about. That seems to be accelerating. So it's definitely been happening. The question is whether it's going to happen for something very major, and then the key fun thing to think about is how quickly could AI win a Nobel Prize. So
Mm.
not somebody winning the Nobel Prize because a human was aided by AI, but whether AI itself could come up with something so novel and so important that AI would win the Nobel Prize. That's one fun thing to think
That's really
about. And I
interesting.
was chatting with Julian Schrittwieser recently, who's a researcher on Anthropic and was at DeepMind before that, and he was predicting that this may happen as early as 2027. So
Whoa.
the AI would not win the prize in 2027 because there's a delay between the time the discovery happens and the time a discovery becomes eligible for the Nobel Prize. But in terms of like the actual fact happening, he was saying 2027, which feels very, very soon.
Yeah, your 2026 Mad Landscape will be out by then.
Yes, 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 yes. And
um,
then like to your question, like the joke has been that maybe there's a version of the landscape that becomes incredibly simple, where for the data infrastructure part you have a one big Databricks logo, and
right.
for the AI part you have one big OpenAI logo, which would make our lives easier.
You joke, but that actually, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't leave anything off off the table at this point. The way things are
Absolutely,
going,
yeah.
that's crazy.
Databricks has been fascinating to watch. Quite frankly, like the level of ambition for a company again that started with its roots in sort of machine learning, then evolved
Yeah.
towards being a data lake house and then data warehouse, and now rebuilding a bunch of layers on top. Is very impressive. And
Oh
Snowflake
yeah.
does great work as well, but Databricks has been sort of like just on a rampage. It feels.
Oh yeah. I think Ali's one of the best CEOs of all time. Period.
Yep.
So he
Yep.
kills it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
Kind of closing out. Like,
Sridhar at Snowflake is
Sridhar's good too.
very
He's
impressive
good.
guy as well. But
Good. Yeah.
uh, yeah, I mean, it's sort of there's a little bit of a acquisition conversation there. Like, yeah, I think all those guys need to be aggressive
Yeah.
and make big acquisitions, because that's what's going to take. Like the prize is so huge, and like the time to take it is now. But they don't need me to tell them that.
Kind of fishing out, like, how are you staying on top of things? All the news, all the events going on like.
So it's if not the primary objective of this effort of the Mad Landscape. So I think about it in terms of I'm an investor in the space. I'm very passionate about it. If I want to have any claim at being somewhat knowledgeable about this space, I need to do my 10,000 hours. And the way I do my 10,000 hours is certainly, meeting with a lot of companies, investing in a lot of companies, being on a lot of boards and talking to a lot of people. But then it's doing a lot of reps of other things. And one of the things is the annual Mad Landscape. And that takes a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Because you need to be very thoughtful and very granular, because as this thing has become, more of something that people in the industry know, it gets scrutinized, and therefore I have to defend a lot of decisions we make. So that's one. And then, as you know, I do Data-Driven NYC, which is the largest data and AI meetup in the country, at which you and Matthew spoke a few years ago. And we just had event number 119. So
No
that's
way.
a lot of events over a long period of time. So that's number two. And then, last but not least, I created a spin-off of Data-Driven NYC, which is a podcast in podcast format called the Mad Landscape, the Mad Podcast for Machine Learning, AI, and Data. And something I do that like almost every week. So that emails me to have amazing conversations with, like I mentioned, Julian Schridwieser. But the last few episodes had the VP of Research at OpenAI, Jared Forek, had Sholto Douglas from Anthropic before that. So just like some amazing people. And that's another way of doing the reps. I mean, just the same way, presumably, you're having these conversations. Like, it forces you to just constantly do the work, prep for it, and bit by bit, you get towards your objective of 10,000 hours. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. And I've been keeping tabs in your podcast too. It's awesome, and your latest guests have been absolutely stellar. So
thank you. Yeah. Sort of graduating to finally managing to get the researchers to speak, which is a whole different level of conversation. Like, speaking with CEOs is a great honor, and like I'm super excited to do it as often as I can. Especially, I've had some amazing folks this year. But that's sort of again, that's kind of the day job. Like, I do that all day, so that comes very naturally. When you start talking with some of the top researchers in the world about like their training pipeline or the minutiae of like this kind of reward system for RL versus another one. Quite frankly, as a VC who happens to be passionate about the space, but like that doesn't have a background in AI research, I've been kicking my own butt very deliberately, but the learning curve has been incredible. So I've really enjoyed it, and I'm glad to hear that you have as well.
It felt like something clicked there, where it definitely felt like you're stepping outside your comfort zone, and so I thought that was really cool to see. Just like getting a new coach with the sets and reps, and you're just like,
so appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Matt, it was good to chat with you. Hope to catch up with you some point in the future. So
absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Really enjoy the conversation as always. And what do you have coming up? Do you have are you writing another book sometime soon? Are you writing another edition of the book?
The book will be published out. I think late January, early Feb is when book one's going to be out.
Okay.
So and
what's the title?
The one heals up. It's mixed model arts, actually. It's on data modeling. So,
very cool.
I have an MMA background, surprisingly enough. I decided that the world, it's sort of like, I think when we talked about the data landscape, right? We were very focused on the world of rows and columns. That world doesn't exist anymore. It still exists, but it's been complemented by many types of data, many ways of working with data. So I think it's to educate practitioners on just the next phase of kind of where we're going as an industry. Pretty much where we are now, but I feel like it's... the next contribution there. So.
Very cool. That's an awesome title, and I very much look forward to the book.
Yeah, thank you very much. Awesome. Well, have a good day.
Cool.
And,
thanks, Joe.
Bye.
Appreciate it.